All right, class, we're going to look at some paintings here of the Renaissance art. These paintings will take a look at what some of the symbolism that is portrayed in the artwork and what the artist actually meant. All right, class, let's look at this Giotto painting, The Adoration of the Magi. Giotto's painting is one of a series that decorates the interior of the Arena Chapel in Padua in northern Italy. The theme linking the series together is a story of the life and passion of Jesus Christ. Here Giotto celebrates one of the most joyful of Christian events and a central incident in the Christmas story, the arrival of the Magi, the wise men from the east who came to worship the newborn Savior, bearing gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. Giotto introduced a new dimension to art, which at the time seemed nothing short of miraculous. Figures who seemed to exist in real space and who displayed recognizable human emotions. All the paintings in the Arena Chapel are true frescoes. That is, they're painted directly onto the wall of the chapel while the plaster was still wet, so becoming an integral part of the building. So let's take a look at a few aspects of this. Right in the center of it, you can see the wise man placing a crown at the feet of the angel. The two people directly behind him have the frankincense and myrrh. If you look up at the top of the painting, you can see what appears to be a comet flying, through the heavens. That would have been the star that they followed. And this makes sense because in 1301, Halley's Comet actually, flew throughout the skies, and this might be a representation of that. One thing that you might take a look at is the camels. Giotto probably had never seen a camel, because these camels do not look like camels. They've got horse feet, and they got blue eyes that look more like a donkey rather than a camel. Nevertheless, this is a true work of art by Giotto in the early part of the Renaissance. All right, let's take a look at this statue of the David by Donatello. As you can tell, this is a freestanding nude, which was one of the first during the Renaissance since the times of the Greeks and the Romans. Down here at the bottom is Goliath's head that's been chopped off by David. He has got Goliath's sword over here, and in his other hand he has the stone that might have been used to take down Goliath. Also, you can see at the top he's got this lovely hat on. This statue is somewhat effeminate when you compare it to Michelangelo's David. It's stark contrast. This one's only a little bit taller than 5 feet, whereas David by Michelangelo's well more than 15 feet. Nevertheless, this was revolutionary at the time during the Renaissance, and a piece of work that will go down as one of the best in the beginning, early Renaissance. Let's take a look at this painting by Masaccio. This painting has 3 different aspects to it, and the 3 different aspects was something that was brought back from antiquity. This type of painting was forgotten during the Middle Ages. In the middle, you have Jesus and Peter pointing to the gentleman over here, which is once again Peter taking a coin out of a fish's mouth, and then Peter moves over here to the right, and then he pays the tax collector. So this type of painting was brought back from the Greeks and the Romans, which had been forgotten. It once again portrays Jesus in a different light than it would have been portrayed in the Gothic or Middle Ages time period. All right, let's take a look at Botticelli's The Birth of Venus. Botticelli's famous painting was revolutionary for its time, being the first large-scale Renaissance painting with an exclusively secular and mythological subject. Admiration for antiquity, ancient Greek and Roman civilizations was the chief feature of the Renaissance, and it was an interest that was shared by many artists, scholars, and statesmen of the time. If we look here at the painting on the right-hand side, we have this lovely lady. She represents spring coming. She has a cloth to cover Venus. Down at the bottom, We have also a small plant down here that's also supposed to represent spring. Over here on the right hand side we have an orange grove that's supposed to represent fertility. And then over here on the left is Zephyr and his lovely lady Chloris, who actually ended up becoming Flora, and they're blowing the wind and blowing Venus to shore. Also, it's stated during this time that flowers, the rose in particular, was created with the creation of Venus, and you can see that this is one of the great artworks of history. All right, let's take a look at the Botticelli's Primavera. The painting is set in a meadow complete with flowers and trees. It shows 9 figures, all based on mythological text. The man on the far left is Mercury, and he separates the clouds so that spring may come. Cupid is above Venus and is known for his lack of mortality and his attempts to take apart marriages. Venus, the goddess of love and beauty, is at the center of the picture, surrounded by 3 graces. Venus is elegantly dressed and obviously reigns over the land. She is no longer the young girl featured in the painting Birth of Venus. Venus is the goddess who protects and cares for the institution of marriage. The myrtle plant surrounding her is traditionally thought of as the plant that represents sexual desire, marriage, and childbearing. Venus supports the fact that marriage is where sexuality is experienced, not before, and the 3 graces also represent this. On the right, covered in flowers, is Flora, the goddess of flowers and blossoms. Also symbolic of love and fertility are the oranges growing in the grove, and the number of oranges Botticelli drew clearly represents the hope that this marriage would result in many offspring. Notice on the right side, above Zephyr, there are no oranges until the scene moves on and Flora is shown to be married and respected by Zephyr. Only then will the fruit be produced. The trees and the fruit are mature, showing that Venus has reached her own maturity. All right, let's take a look at Michelangelo's The Fall of Man. In Michelangelo's The Fall of Man from the Sistine Chapel, it was a groundbreaking depiction of the temptation and expulsion of from the Garden of Eden. The 2 events are united by an enormous tree whose limbs are partly formed by an enticing Satan on one side and an angry angel of justice on the other. And you can see, Satan is kind of wrapped up over here, and then you got the angel on the other side over here. This scene shows the evolution of Michelangelo's style as he worked on the ceiling. For the first time, the figures occupy the entire foreground and display the use of foreshortening, which was to become even more dominant in later scenes. All right, let's take a look at the statue of David, by Michelangelo. The David is a masterpiece of Renaissance sculpture created between 1501 and 1504 by the Italian artist Michelangelo. It is about 17 feet high marble statue of a standing male nude. The statue represents the biblical hero of David, a favorite subject in the art of Florence. Originally commissioned as one of a series of statues of prophets to be positioned along the roof line of the east end of Florence Cathedral, the statue was instead placed in a public square on September 8, 1504. Because of the nature of the hero that it represented, it soon came to symbolize the defense of civil liberties embodied by the Florentine Republic, an independent city-state threatened on all sides by more powerful rival states under the leadership of the Medici family. The eyes of David, with a waning glare, were turned towards Rome. All right, let's take a look at The Last Supper by Leonardo da Vinci. First, it's remarkable because the disciples are all displaying very human, identifiable emotions. The Last Supper has certainly been painted before, but Leonardo's version, though, was the first to depict real people acting like real people. Secondly, and of major importance, the technical perspective in The Last Supper is incredible. You can see that every single element of the painting directs one's attention straight to the midpoint of the composition, which is Christ's head. It is arguably the greatest example of one-point perspective ever created. All right, let's take a look at Leonardo's The Mona Lisa. The Mona Lisa can fairly claim to be the most famous painting in the world. It hangs in the Louvre Museum in Paris, protected by several inches of bulletproof glass. The picture is surprisingly small, yet for nearly 500 years the Mona Lisa has inspired poetry, songs, paintings, sculptures, and other forms of art from all over the world. When first seen, she was considered to have brought a new dimension of lifelike reality to the art of painting. So if we take a look at this painting, you can see the eyes. Leonardo thought the eyes were the window to the soul. When we take a look at her mouth, that is she about ready to break into a larger smile. It's somewhat of a puzzling nature, her smile. We can see down here the hands. The hands looked completely relaxed, and to accentuate the gentle and majesty of the figure portrayed. Over here on the left-hand side, the somato, or how her hair kind of blurs with the background, her shoulder, and that is to give the impression that there could be some kind of movement. So this is one of the great paintings in the world. Alright, let's take a look at the School of Athens. Raphael was the Pope's inspired and courageous choice of artists to decorate the room called Santa della Signora in the Vatican at Rome. The room was used as a library and a place where the Pope Julius II signed the decrees of the ecclesiastical court. There are 4 themes, one on each wall: philosophy, theology, poetry, and law. This work illustrates philosophy and is peopled with images of some of the great exponents of that discipline. To over here on the left-hand side, you can see this is Apollo, the god of the sun, who represents harmony and sobriety. He also represents philosophical enlightenment and civilizing power of reason. And then over here on the left, you have the goddess of wisdom, which is Minerva, who presides over peace and defensive war. You have some greats in here, right in the middle, of course. You have Plato and Aristotle. Over here on the left-hand side, here is Socrates, and he's giving Alexander the Great a lesson. Down here at the bottom, you have the Greek mathematician Pythagoras giving a lesson. Down here at the bottom, you have Michelangelo. Over here on the right-hand side, you have Euclid, and he's giving his lesson. You have the artist is actually right here where that red dot is showing up. That's actually Raphael himself. And you also have Ptolemy, the 2nd century astronomer, right here with his back towards us. So this is a great work of art showing and representing some of the greats from history. Alright, let's look at Titian's Sacred and Profane Love. Sacred and Profane Love, Titian's masterpiece, painted when he was about 25 to celebrate the marriage of 2 Venetians in 1514. The bride, over here on the left-hand side, in white, sitting beside Cupid, is assisted by Venus in person. So this would be Venus over here. The figure with the vase of jewels symbolizes fleeting happiness on earth, and the one bearing the burning flame of God's love symbolizes eternal happiness in heaven.